Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. And welcome today to my review of another Revelot Gentus inspired integrated bracelet sports watch. Hang on. It's made by Malaysian microbrand Revelot, who specialise in homaging but not copying classic designs at great prices. See? There you go. No, I totally get it. I think we have already reached peak integrated bracelet sports watch and are now travelling down the other side. We have seen a rush over the last few years by every single brand, big and small, to get one of this style of design into their catalogue. At the affordable end of the market, the Tissot PRX is now so commonplace it's almost ubiquitous. Indeed, it makes a cameo in this video in just a minute or two's time. And that makes it harder for brands like Revelot to sell this type of design because you may already have bought this type of design. But look, PRX fatigue is their problem, not mine. I'm just here to review the watches, and I'm always happy to review a Revelot because their watches are so well priced. The Admiral is still the cheapest microbrand GMT that I've seen, featuring the NH34, and the Universal started at $89 for goodness sakes. That's AliExpress price, not microbrand price. And so it is with this model, the Gentus. Do you see what they did there? These start at only $129 and go up to just over $320, so they're definitely not taking the mickey with the prices. The question is, what do you get and what do you not get for that money? Now, you saw the pop-up? This video is sponsored by Revelot. I will therefore of course leave a link to this watch in their website in the description of the video. Now, at the time of recording, the early bird pricing is still available. By the time you're watching this video, it might not be, so be sure to check the listing thoroughly if you're interested. There are also a bunch of other YouTube reviews on this watch out there already, so be sure to check those if you're interested as well. Let's flip the camera and get on with it. Alright, before I even show you what's inside the box, if you're interested in one of these, I urge you to look at their website because there are so many options available. I'll try and summarise it, but really, you should still have a look for yourself. So, there are 40 and 36mm options, the larger watch coming in quartz or auto, the smaller watch only in quartz. And there are numerous dial options. The autos come with either guilloche or aventurine or skeleton dials, the quartz only with the guilloche dials. Autos come with either Seiko NH35s or Seiko NH70s, depending on whether or not they're skeletonized. Now, I'm just about hanging on to all of this, but then you see how many different color options are available. They just keep coming, and this is only the automatic. There are almost as many options to consider when we start looking at the quartz. Like I said, do yourself a favor, have a look at the website. Alright, back to the box. I have been sent a total of 3 prototypes. 2 Auto 40s, one with a skeleton dial, one with a guilloche dial. Those are the 2 in the box. I was also sent a single 36mm quartz on silicone. I will rotate through all 3 over the course of the video. Let's have a quick look at them all then, starting with the guilloche 40mm auto. This is really rather a striking looking dial for a watch costing less than $250 US. All indices are applied with Romans at the 12, 3, 6 and 9 and batons everywhere else. Those batons, like the Romans, are beveled at both ends, which adds to the light play on offer. The hands are similarly complex with a brushed upper surface, high polished beveled edges and lume at the tips, semi-skeletonized lume at the tips of the hour and the minute hand. The unlumed second hand has an arrowhead tip and arrowhead counterbalance. Now, the Revelot brand name, logo, model name and automatic appear to be printed on top of the dial surface. And when we get a bit closer to this one, you can see it looks like a metallic surface which has been properly etched to create that whirlpool effect. Now, we are not talking grand Seiko standard here, but for $250, how could we possibly be? It's actually really quite nice looking considering the price that they're charging. Now, the skeleton has a totally different look, in terms of the dial at least. Transparent green perspex style so that you can see a fair chunk of the movement lurking beneath it. If you watched last week's video on the MMI Norlight, this is the movement that I thought the MMI Norlight should have had, i.e. a dedicated skeletonized movement that took advantage of the clear dial. But this green one they sent me is rather light dependent. It can look quite striking from certain angles, but quite dull from others. So it is somewhat inconsistent. It does depend rather a lot on the ambient lighting. I do like the extra bit of colour though they've used on this green one in the form of the orange second hand and the orange model name printing though. Finally, the wee guy, the 36mm quartz. Now this one also has a guilloche dial, it has the same applied indices and skeletonized handset. And crucially for some, it also has a date complication in a large brushed frame at the 6. Neither of the automatics have a date complication at all, so if you need a date, then really it's quartz or nothing. Date wheels will be black rather than white for production units, by the way. However, when we go in closer here, it looks different from the guilloche dial on the 40. This one looks moulded rather than etched, and it doesn't look quite as nice to my eye anyway as a consequence. Now the quartz is considerably cheaper than the auto. It seems to me then that some money has been saved with the movement switch, but some money has also been saved by switching the dial as well. Dimensions then. This Nautilus style case is notoriously hard to get a proper measurement on. You have to measure it across the diagonal. And across the diagonal, it does indeed measure in at just over 40. I measure it at 40.2. It's bang on 12mm thick. Lug tip to lug tip today is 45, which is quite compact. Lug width is not applicable. Weight sized up for my 7-inch wrist is 150 grams in this 40mm size. Water resistance is only 5 atmospheres though, 50 meters. Crystal is flat sapphire, and the movement depends on your dial choice, so either a Seiko NH35 or Seiko NH70. Now, I know what you're thinking. 40mm integrated bracelet sports watch, this is going to wear just like the larger PRX model. But it doesn't. Have a look at the two next to each other. The PRX looks considerably bigger. In many ways then, the Revelot is sized like the PRX that doesn't exist yet. The one in between the 35 and the 40. So if you have tried on the Tissot, but you can't pick between the two sizes, perhaps this one will suit you better than either of those. Now, the smaller Gentus is unsurprisingly smaller than the bigger Gentus. I measure it at 35.2mm across the diagonal, only 8.6mm thick, and 40.5 lug to lug. That is really quite small. Now, as supplied, this time on a silicone band, it weighs only 59 grams. Again, 50 meters of water resistance, flat sapphire crystal, but the movement this time is an unspecified Ronda Swiss quartz. Of course, sizing is personal and sizing is subjective. You buy what you like. I can only really tell you what I like. Now, I can totally wear the 35mm PRX, particularly in auto, because it's a little bit thicker and a little bit chunkier, but I personally wouldn't wear this smaller Gentus. It is too small for me. So, the 40mm Gentus wears smaller than the 40mm PRX. The 35mm Gentus also wears smaller than the 35mm PRX. Anyway, case finish. There's a lot going on here, both in terms of the case shape and in terms of the finishing they have chosen. Now, the sides are brushed, as is the flat upper bezel surface, but those wings do add numerous angles to the side, and the tops and bottoms of the wings themselves also add a polished surface. The integrated bracelet is held in place by screws which feature prominently in each of the lugs, and there's a little bit of a high polish undercut to the case which helps with comfort, and two high polish surfaces to the bezel which give a little bit of extra shine when viewed from above. The push-pull crown is semi-guarded and features the Revelot logo in it, which is the Malaysian star. It's etched in there. Everything is smooth to the touch. I have no complaints about the complexity or the standard of finishing for the money. Likewise, there is plenty of complexity to the bracelet as well. It tapers from an effective 24 where it leaves the case, all the way down to 17.5 at the butterfly clasp. The upper bracelet surfaces are all brushed, but there is a high polish edge to each side of the link and the top and bottom of both the outer link and the central link, if you see what I mean. The links were held together by a pin and collar system, rather unusually. I would have expected either push pins or screws. You don't see pin and collars very often outside of Seiko's. They do supply a couple of half links, though they're more like 2/3 links, which actually gives you plenty of sizing options, which is just as well. Let's get them on wrist then. I've already pretty much told you how they were. A bit smaller than their PRX counterparts, but still quite chunky thanks to the angular case, the wings on each side of that angular case, and the weight. 150 grams is 15 grams heavier than the equivalent sized PRX. I quite like the wrist roll though, especially with the guilloche dial, which does its best to take some of the attention off that flat link bracelet, but it struggles. There's just so much bling on the bracelet, so many different facets. It is pretty spectacular if you like that kind of thing though. Lots of components of this watch, all vying for your attention at the same time. There is certainly a lot going on with this one. It's the same again for the green version, but just without quite as much light play from the dial. You can see again though that the green appears quite bright from some angles and not so bright from other angles as I roll my wrist around. Now perhaps you noticed something about this shot. That's not my arm. I don't wear a large engagement ring on my ring finger. I'm not going to label the 35 a woman's watch, but it just so happens that my wife really likes it, so I borrowed her arm for the video. She seems to have found her favourite micro brand. She wears the Revelot Universal as a daily, but I think this one might take over because she doesn't need to take it off when bathing John Wood Jr. or for his seemingly endless swimming lessons thanks to the silicone strap and the 15 meters of water resistance. Pocket shot to finish then, just with the bigger watch. Despite a bit of chunk and a bit of weight, I would still be inclined to wear this one loose. That way you get to take advantage of all of those flashy surfaces by allowing the watch to move around a bit more than normal. The semi-guarded crown certainly helps with comfort as well, meaning the crown doesn't dig into the back of your wrist. The bracelet is fairly smooth on the underside as well, and the butterfly clasp is too, so there are no nasty surprises here. But while we're on the subject of nasty, it's time for the moans and niggles section. Case backs. They vary considerably. The one in the Quartz watch is fine, I'm not going to complain about it, and I'm not going to complain about the one on the skeletonized dial model either. It has to be see-through for the whole skeleton thing to work, and the NH70 is actually a more premium movement than the NH35, so you get a nicer rotor as well, for example. But I've got to be consistent in my moaning, and I am consistently bemused by see-through casebacks with printing on them. They aren't the best of both worlds, they are the worst of both worlds. Either put the guilloche patterning on a metal caseback or don't put it there at all. This is half and half, it just doesn't work for me. Loom is poor on all of these protos. Only the two main hands are loomed, plus a little bit of loom on the chapter ring. The loom is just printed on though, and not very thickly printed on. Ask me how I know. Well, when I turn the speed up, it becomes obvious that it isn't thickly printed on. These are prototypes, perhaps there will be improvements made for production units, but perhaps there won't. And let's look again at the two guilloche dials in quick succession. I like the metal one on the 40. I think it looks really rather nice for the price they're charging. But I'm not as much of a fan of the moulded one on the Quartz. It just looks a bit drab by comparison. So don't order the Quartz, think you're getting the metal guilloche dial, because I don't think you are. I think you're getting a moulded guilloche dial. And stylistically, there is a lot going on here, whatever dial you go for. Romans are very much an acquired taste as well, and it's a taste that, I'll be honest, I haven't personally acquired over the years. The only Romans in my collection are on a single California dial, and even then, therefore, only on half of that dial. And finally, there is definitely a little bit of Genta fatigue in the market, as noted in the intro. If you're suffering, you've probably skipped on already, but if you're not, then maybe there's room for one of these in your collection. They're certainly great value, and they're certainly not a one-for-one rip-off of any particular model by your boy Gerald. So there you have it, the Revelot Gentus. I think these will sell well. There's nothing wrong with the Quartz on silicone, by the way, if you want something comfortable that you can just grab and go. And the guilloche on the Auto is really quite good considering the sub $250 US asking price. But the guilloche on the Quartz isn't nearly as nice, and they are pretty full on in terms of styling. I'd like to personally thank you for persevering until the end of the video. Why not watch another one by the same brand, either here or here. I'll see you again in the next one.